إِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَى. Indeed, you will not make the dead hear. Al-mawta, plural of mayyit, one who is dead. That it's not your fault if the people are not listening. That despite the fact that you lay the truth out before them, you put it clearly before them, you make it so crystal clear, still people do not accept, still they do not get it, it's not your fault. Because the fact is that إِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَى. You cannot make the dead people listen. If a person is dead, can you make him listen to you? Can you make him understand what you're saying? No. You can lecture him for hours. Will he get anything? No. Will he respond positively? Not at all. So the state of these people is very similar. That their hearts are dead because of their persistent disbelief. And no matter what you say to them, they do not respond. So it's not your fault. وَلَا تُسْمِعُ الصُّمَّ الدُّعَاء. And nor can you make the deaf ones listen to the call. You cannot even make those people who are deaf listen. That if you call them and the person is deaf, can they listen? No. So is it your fault? No. And especially إِذَا وَلَّوْا مُدْبِرِينَ, when they have turned away, showing their backs. If you think about it, if a person is deaf and they can see, can you still communicate with them? Yes, you can. On the other hand, if a person is blind, but they can hear, can you communicate with them? Yes. It's amazing how sometimes you meet a person who is blind, but they listen so attentively, and you can have such a good conversation with them. Why? Because they're listening. Even if they cannot see, they're listening. You can communicate with them. You can speak to them. You can make them understand. But if a person is both blind and deaf, can you communicate with them? Through sign language? No. Because they cannot see. Through words? No, they cannot hear. Is there any way of getting through to them? It's impossible for you. And imagine if a person is deaf. They can see, but they turn their back on you. They cannot see you anymore. Can you say anything to them? Can you make them understand something? No. This is the state of those people who turn away from the Prophet of Allah. That it's as though they have become blind and deaf. And especially when they have turned away, then what can you do? You cannot make them listen at all. So it's not your fault. In Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 171, we learn, وَمَثَلُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا كَمَثَلِ الَّذِي يَنْعِقُ بِمَا لَا يَسْمَعُ إِلَّا دُعَاءً وَنِدَاءً صُمٌّ بُكْمٌ عُمْيٌ فَهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. The example of those people who disbelieve is like that of one who shouts at what hears nothing but calls and cries. And what are they? Animals. That when you call them, all that they hear is just shout and cry. That's it. Deaf, dumb and blind. So they do not understand. They do not get it. So it's not the fault of the da'i if despite his efforts, other people do not respond. وَمَا أَنْتَ بِهَادِ الْعُمْيِ عَنْ ضَلَالَتِهِمْ. And you cannot guide the blind away from their error. وَمَا أَنْتَ بِهَادِ الْعُمْيِ. Notice هَادِ الْعُمْيِ. Hadi is ism fa'il, and there's more mubalagha in this. It's more baligh. Instead of saying that وَمَا أَنْتَ, instead of using the verbal form تَهْدِ الْعُمْيَ, you cannot guide the blind. Where the ism fa'il is used, it's more effective, that you cannot be the guide of. You cannot be the guide of those who are blind, those who are unwilling to see the truth. You cannot guide them away from their error. Then who can you guide? Who can you teach? Who can you show? In tusmi'u. You can only make here إِلَّا مَن يُؤْمِنُ بِآيَاتِنَا, except only those people who believe in our ayat, فَهُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. So they submit. It is only such people who can benefit from the Qur'an. And this is something that we must reflect on. That in tusmi'u إِلَّا مَن يُؤْمِنُ بِآيَاتِنَا فَهُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Only a person who believes in the ayat of Allah and he submits. How does he submit? He just says that I have submitted? No, in his action he submits. That when he hears of what Allah wants him to do, it's not as though he never heard. No. فَهُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. They submit in action. It is such people who benefit from the Qur'an. Guidance is something that only Allah can give. It's not in the hand of the da'i. إِن تَحْرِصْ عَلَى هُدَاهُمْ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَهْدِي مَن يُضِلُّ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُسْمِعُ مَن يَشَاءُ وَمَا أَنْتَ بِمُسْمِعٍ مَّن فِي الْقُبُورِ. Guidance is only in the hands of Allah. However, Allah grants guidance to who? To the one who wants guidance, the one who wants to listen, the one who wants to see, the one who has some interest. And the one who has that interest, who believes in the ayat, who, whenever he learns of something, he submits, then Allah gives him more and more tawfiq. He gives him more and more understanding, more and more knowledge, more and more ability to act upon that knowledge. Go ahead. She's mentioning about this man who is unable to hear, unable to see, and still he prays 5 times a day in the masjid. So, it's not the physical blindness. It's not the physical deafness. It's the blindness of the heart and mind. The deafness of the heart and mind. That when a person, he's interested, he has iman in his heart, even if he can physically not see, even if he can physically not hear, still, he will be far better than a person who can see, can hear, but doesn't have any interest in the ayat of Allah. A clear difference. You see, the thing is that if a person loves something, if a person loves someone, then what will happen? They will listen to their speech. And if they can see, they would love to see it again and again. I can't understand how people watch certain movies over and over and over again. Or they watch the same news, same video clips again and again. How? Why? You've seen it once. Isn't that enough? Isn't that sufficient? What makes you watch it again and again? It's not that you're going to be tested on it. It's not that you're going to make some money by watching it. Then what is it that makes people watch? What is it? Love. When you love something, you watch it repeatedly. When you love someone, you listen to their words again and again. It's amazing how, people, they love their children, and even if they are babbling words that make no sense, or babbling words that are unclear, still they will want the children to say those words again and again so that they can listen. They will ask the same questions so that the child can repeat the answer and they can listen and get amused by it. And people will record the conversations of their little children as they're beginning to talk. Why? They make no sense. Incomplete. But still they love to hear. Why? Because they love their child. Then how is it possible that we claim to love Allah, yet when it comes to listening to His kalam, then we don't have interest? How is it possible? It's not possible. If there is love in the heart, then definitely the ears will be attentive. The eyes will be attentive. And a person will be so interested that he will know what to do, when to do, how to do. This love will guide him. إِلَّا مَن يُؤْمِنُ بِآيَاتِنَا فَهُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. It will make a person Muslim. It will make a person submit. وَإِذَا وَقَعَ الْقَوْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ. And when the word befalls them. وَقَعَ. وَقَعَ literally means to fall down, and from that to occur, to happen. واقعة. What does واقعة mean? Incident, occurrence. إذا وقعت الواقعة. And وقع الحق. وقع الحق is when something is proven true. And وقع القول is when a statement that was said previously becomes incumbent and necessary, meaning it must come into effect. Like for example, I tell you that tomorrow I'll tell you such and such. So tomorrow when the class time begins, then وقع القول. What I said must come into effect. It's incumbent because I promised. So وَإِذَا وَقَعَ الْقَوْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ. When the word befalls them. Which statement? Which word is this? This word refers to the promise of the establishment of the hour. Allah has said that the day of judgment will occur. He has promised that those who are in the graves will be brought out. This is a promise. This is Allah's qawl. So when this qawl must be fulfilled, when it will become incumbent and necessary. So in other words, when the day of judgment has drawn very close, then what's going to happen? أَخْرَجْنَا لَهُمْ دَابَّةً مِّنَ الْأَرْضِ. We are going to extract for them, we're going to bring out for them a dabba from the earth. What is a dabba? Creature, right? Dabba yadubbu literally means to crawl, to move. So dabba is used for a creature that moves by itself. Which is why the word dabba applies to fish, it applies to ants, it applies to horses, it applies to camels, it applies to even who? Human beings. Dabba. So when the day of judgment draws very near, when it has come very close, what's going to happen? Allah is going to bring out from the earth a dabba. And this dabba is going to emerge from the earth. Just as the she-camel, it came out of the mountain. Similarly, this dabba is going to come out of the earth. It's going to emerge out of the earth. And this dabba, tukallimuhum, it's going to speak to the people. Which people? All those who were present at that time. Why? Because أَنَّ النَّاسَ, that indeed the people, كَانُوا بِآيَاتِنَا لَا يُقِنُونَ. They do not believe in certainty in the ayat of Allah. So at that time, the people will be such that none of them does amr bil ma'roof, nahi anil munkar. None of them calls people to good, forbids them from wrong. So what's going to happen? Allah is going to send a dabba. Now this dabba, the name of this dabba is jassasa. Some say that it's an animal. What kind of animal? Allahu a'lam. And others say that perhaps it's a human being. Because tukallimuhum. But the reality is that we cannot say for sure whether it's a human being or something else. All we know is that it's going to be a dabba. And you see, if it was a human being, then the word insan or something could have been used. Isn't it so? Like for example, we know very clearly that Dajjal is going to come. We know very clearly the Mahdi is going to come. It's mentioned very clearly. So even if this dabba was supposed to be a human being would have been said. However, Allahu a'lam, what exactly the reality is, but we know for sure that this dabba is going to come. And it's going to come out of the earth. We learn from a hadith which is reported in Ibn Majah that Barida said that the Prophet ﷺ took me to a place in the desert near Makkah. He took me to a place in the desert near Makkah. And it was a very dry piece of land surrounded by sand. And the Prophet ﷺ said, the beast will emerge from this place. He said the dabba will emerge from this place. And it was a very small area. So what do we learn? That this ard, it refers to a land near Makkah. From there, some dabba is going to emerge. Just as the she-camel of Thamud emerged from the mountain. And what will it do? It will speak to the people. It will speak to the people, tukallimuhum. We learned that Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, he said that this dabba will emerge when none of the people will do amr bil ma'roof wa nahi anil munkar. That is when this dabba will emerge, and as a result, what is this dabba going to do? This dabba is going to tell people what right is, what wrong is. Imagine, none from among the people will be doing this work, so Allah will send a dabba that's going to speak to the people. We also learned that Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he narrated that this dabba will have the asa of Musa alayhi salam and the ring of Sulaiman alayhi salam. This dabba will have the asa of Musa alayhi salam and the ring of Sulaiman alayhi salam. And with the asa, he will enlighten the faces of believers. Those people who are believers, their faces will be enlightened with the asa. And will seal the disbelievers with the ring. Will seal the disbelievers with the ring of who? Sulaiman alayhi salam. So tukallimuhum. Why? Because أَنَّ النَّاسَ كَانُوا بِآيَاتِنَا لَا يُقِنُونَ. Abdullah ibn Umar, he said that I memorized a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, which I have not forgotten since. I heard the Prophet ﷺ say, the first of the signs of the hour to appear will be the rising of the sun from the west. The first of the signs will be what? The rising of the sun from the west. And the appearance of the beast before the people in the forenoon. Whichever of these two events happens first, the other will follow immediately. We also learned the Prophet ﷺ said, the hour will not come until you see 10 signs. 10 signs. The rising of the sun from the west, the smoke, dukhan, emergence of the beasts, ad-dabba, the emergence of Ya'juj and Ma'juj, the appearance of Isa ibn Maryam, Dajjal, and 3 land cave-ins. One in the west, one in the east, and one in the Arabian Peninsula. And a fire which will emerge from the midst of Yemen and will drive or gather the people, stopping with them whenever they stop for the night or to rest during the day. Sahih Muslim. We also learned the Prophet ﷺ said, Abu Hurairah narrated, that a beast will emerge from the earth and with it will be the staff of Musa and the ring of Sulaiman. It will strike the nose of the disbelievers with the staff and it will make the face of the believer bright with the ring. Until when people gather to eat, they will be able to recognize the believers from the disbelievers. People will be able to tell who is a believer and who is a disbeliever. Because as dabba, it will mark the believer, it will mark the disbeliever. The 2 reports are there. Although what is mentioned is different, but what do we learn essentially? That the dabba, what will it do? It will clearly mark out and distinguish the believer from the disbeliever. At that time, the iman and kufr of a person will not be concealed. So what's the main lesson that we learn from here? The main lesson. What can we extract for ourselves from this? That we see that this dabba, what will it do? Amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. Because no person will be doing it at that time. What do we learn from this? That Allah can take the work of His deen from anyone, from anything. Human being, or even a creature, even an animal. We underestimate animals. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has shown us the example of the hudhud. He has shown us the example of the ants. Don't underestimate animals. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ جُنُودَ رَبِّكَ إِلَّا هُ. You do not know what they're capable of doing. And Allah can take the work of His deen from anyone. We think that the work of deen relies upon us. Only if we show up, then something can be done. And if we don't commit, then nothing will be done. No. Allah does not need us. His work does not need us. We need to do this work. What do we learn at the end of the 19th juz? What do we learn? وَسَلَامٌ عَلَىٰ عِبَادِهِ الَّذِينَ اصْطَفَىٰ. That may peace of Allah be upon those servants of His whom He has chosen. Who are the chosen servants of Allah? Those who strive to spread the message. Those who strive to work for the deen. And such people are blessed. Such people, on them is the peace of Allah. They are the ones who are lucky. They are the ones who will benefit. They are the ones who are successful. And if a person turns away from this cause, then remember that Allah does not need you. He does not need us at all. وَيَوْمَ نَحْشُرُ مِنْ كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ فَوْجًا. And on the day we will gather from every ummah, a group, a fawj. On the day of judgment, when all people will be gathered, from every ummah. What does ummah refer to? Ummah of Prophet. Meaning from every ummah of the Prophet. Meaning the Prophet and his ummah, the ummah to whom that he was sent to. So min kulli ummatin, from every ummah, nahshuruhu, we're going to gather who? Fawjan. A group. A group of who? Mimman yukadhibu bi ayatina. Of those people who used to deny our ayat, فَهُمْ يُزَعُونَ. So they will be driven in rows. So on the day of judgment, all people will be gathered. Every ummah, every nation will be present. And from every nation, who will be extracted out? Those people who denied the ayat of Allah. So from the ummah of Musa a.s., those who denied the ayat of Allah, Fir'aun and his people. From the ummah of Salih a.s., those people who denied the ayat of Allah, they will be extracted, they will be separated. From the ummah of Muhammad ﷺ, those who denied the ayat of Allah, they will be separated. And once they are separated, فَهُمْ يُزَعُونَ. Then they will be restrained in groups, or they will be driven in rows. We have done this word يُزَعُونَ earlier as well. Waw zai'ain, waz'ul jaysh, is to restrain an army, a band, to keep them fixed in rows, to arrange them in rows, to keep them in discipline. So فَهُمْ يُوزِعُونَ, first of all, this word, it reflects their large numbers. فَوْجًا, large numbers of those people who denied, those people who rejected. And all of them will be brought out, and they will be يُوزَعُونَ, kept in their proper places, so no one will be able to hide, no one will be able to escape. حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءُوا, until when they came where? At the site of reckoning, at the site of hisab. قَالَ, Allah will say to them, أَكَذَّبْتُمْ بِآيَاتِ, did you deny my ayat? What did you do? You denied my ayat, my prophets, my signs, my verses, the miracles that I sent. You denied them. وَلَمْ تُحِيطُوا بِهَا عِلْمًا, while you did not encompass them in knowledge. Did you do this? That you denied the ayat of Allah without fully knowing them. وَلَمْ تُحِيطُوا بِهَا عِلْمًا, without fully comprehending them. Without thinking, you rejected them. And we see that even today, there are many people who are very hasty in rejecting the Qur'an entirely or parts of it. Simply because, I don't understand, I don't get it, so this does not make sense, I don't believe in it. The problem is that you do not understand. لَمْ تُحِيطُوا بِهَا عِلْمًا. Is your knowledge complete and absolute? It's not. Then how can you deny something based on your little knowledge and little understanding? You cannot do that. And if a person does that, then he's a criminal. So Allah will question people, أَكَذَّبْتُمْ بِآيَاتِ وَلَمْ تُحِيطُوا بِهَا عِلْمًا. The people will say, no, we did not reject them. So Allah will say, أَمَّاذَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. Then what is it that you were doing? If you were not denying the ayat, then what is it that you were doing? Were you believing in them? Were you following them? Were you supporting the messenger? You were not. أَمَّاذَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. وَوَقَعَ الْقَوْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ. And then at that moment, at that point, the decree will befall them. It will come into effect. Which decree? Which qawl? The qawl of punishment. And as a result, they'll be sent to hellfire. Why? بِمَا ظَلَمُوا, because of their injustice, because they did wrong. What wrong did they commit? Kufr of the ayat of Allah without knowledge. فَهُمْ لَا يَنْطِقُونَ. And then they will not speak. They will not be able to utter even one word. They will not be able to give even one excuse. They will not be able to give any argument. They will be unable to speak. They will be unable to say anything in front of Allah. But in this dunya, what happens? People have the confidence to talk a lot against the ayat of Allah, in their mockery, in their denial, in their rejection, in belittling the ayat, based on their little knowledge, little experience, little comprehension and understanding. But on that day, they'll be unable to speak. In Surah Al-Mursalat, ayah 35-36, we learn, هَذَا يَوْمُ لَا يَنْطِقُونَ وَلَا يُؤْذَنُ لَهُمْ فَيَعْتَذِرُونَ. This is a day that they will not speak, nor will it be permitted for them to make an excuse. Al-Mursalat 35-36. They will not be able to speak, and they will not be allowed to even offer an excuse. In Surah Yasin, ayah 65, we learn, الْيَوْمَ نَخْتِمُ عَلَىٰ أَفْوَاهِهِمْ وَتُكَلِّمُنَا أَيْدِيهِمْ وَتَشْهَدُ أَرْجُلُهُمْ بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. That day we will seal over their mouths. Their mouths will be sealed, and their hands will speak to us, and their feet will testify about what they used to do. أَلَمْ يَرَوْا. Have they not seen? أَنَّا جَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ. That indeed we have made the night لِيَسْكُنُوا فِيهِ, so that they can find rest in it. Yaskunu, Sin Kaf Nun, Sukun. That Allah has made the night such so that people can find rest in it. وَالنَّهَارَ مُبْصِرًا. And Allah has made the day as mubsir, as one that gives vision. How? Because of the presence of the sun. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمِ يُؤْمِنُونَ. Indeed, in that are surely signs for people who believe. What does this ayah reflect? The great knowledge of Allah, complete knowledge of Allah, and the wisdom behind everything that Allah has fixed, everything that Allah has said. That even in the coming of the night and the day, in the nature of the night, the way the night is, the way the day is, there is great wisdom. So if there is wisdom behind how the night is and how the day is, that the night is such that people can find rest, it's dark. the day is bright so that people can do their work, then every ayah, every command, there is wisdom behind that. So how can we be hasty in rejecting them? If you connect this with the previous ayat, what is the crime of the people? That they reject the ayat of Allah based on their little knowledge, little experience. So over here we're being made to realize that everything that Allah has set, everything that Allah has fixed, every statement that Allah has told us about, every command that He has given, there is wisdom behind that. It's possible we don't know it, it's possible we don't see it, but it's there. So we should not be hasty in rejecting. We should not be hasty in doubting. And many times it happens that we come across certain commands that we do not fully comprehend. And we say, I'm not going to act upon this. I'm not going to do it until I fully understand it. We give ourselves this excuse. When I fully get it, then I will do it. But your knowledge is limited. Your brain is so tiny. It's limited. You don't have the knowledge of every single thing. So how can you say, when I understand, then I will do it? Trust Allah. Trust Him. If He has made something a certain way, if He has given a command, then there is wisdom behind it. There is benefit behind it. You don't know, but it's there. وَيَوْمَ يُنْفَخُ فِي الصُّورِ. And warn of the day when the horn will be blown, when the trumpet will be blown. يُنْفَخُ فِي الصُّورِ. And which blowing of the trumpet is this? The first blast. By who? By the angel Israfil. And remember that the first blast of the trumpet is for what? Is for everyone to die. And the second one, for everyone to be brought alive. So وَيَوْمَ يُنْفَخُ فِي الصُّورِ, the first blowing of the trumpet, what's going to happen? فَفَزِعَ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Then whoever that is in the heavens and the earth, what's going to happen to them? فَزِعَ. فَزِعَ is from the root letters فَزَيْعَيْن. And فَزِعَ is to be terrified, to be alarmed, to be panic-stricken. So whoever that is in the heavens and the earth, what's going to happen to them? They're going to be panic-stricken. To the point that they will die. They'll be so terrified that they're going to die. Except for who? إِلَّا مَنْ شَاءَ اللَّهِ. Except for those whom Allah wills. They will not be terrified at the blowing of the trumpet. وَكُلٌّ أَتَوْهُ دَاخِرِينَ. And all of them will come to Him as ones who are humble. And the question is, who does it refer to? إِلَّا مَنْ شَاءَ اللَّهِ. Who will be spared from this fright, from this panic that will result in death because of the blowing of the trumpet? Some have said that it refers to the angels Jibreel, Mikael, Israfil, and the angel of death. That everyone will die except for these angels. And then they too will die eventually. And according to Ibn Abbas radhiyallahu anhu, it refers to the shuhada. Which shuhada? The shuhada that we learn about in Surah Al-Imran, ayah 169, that عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ, that they are with their Lord, يُرْزَقُونَ, that do not consider them to be dead. So إِلَّا مَنْ شَاءَ اللَّهِ. They will hear the sound, but they will not fear. They will not be terrified. But وَكُلٌّ أَتَوْهُ دَاخِرِينَ. All of them, all of the creation will come to Allah as humble, submissive, in humility. In Surah Az-Zumar, ayah 68, we learn, وَنُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ فَصَعِقَ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا مَنْ شَاءَ اللَّهِ ثُمَّ نُفِخَ فِيهِ أُخْرَى فَإِذَا هُمْ قِيَامٌ يَنْظُرُونَ. And the horn will be blown, and whoever is in the heavens and whoever is on the earth will fall dead, except whom Allah wills. Then it will blow again, and at once they will be standing, looking on. Dakhirin is from the root letters Dal, Kha, Ra, from the word dukhur. And dukhur is to be small, to be lowly, to be very humble, to be nothing before someone. Kullun atawhu dakhirin. All of them, all of the creation will come before Allah as what? Dakhirin, small, utterly humiliated, humbled. What do we learn in the hadith? That all people will come, how? Barefoot, with nothing on their bodies. Humble, with nothing. وَكُلُّهُمْ آتِيهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فَرْدًا. As an individual. In Surah Maryam, ayah 93, we learn, إِن كُلُّ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ إِلَّا آتِ الرَّحْمَنِ عَبْدًا. There is no one in the heavens and the earth but that he will come to the most merciful as a servant. Everyone will come to him in submission. In Surah Al-Isra, ayah 52, we learn, يَوْمَ يَدْعُوكُمْ فَتَسْتَجِيبُونَ بِحَمْدِهِ. On the day that he will call you and you will respond with praise of him. كُلٌّ أَتَوْهُ دَاخِرِينَ. All will come to Allah as humble, as ones who are nothing. No one will be able to say, I'm not going to come. No one will be able to come in arrogance, in pride, with their wealth, with their worldly statuses. Nothing. كُلٌّ أَتَوْهُ دَاخِرِينَ. We'll listen to the recitation.